And East Hampton Town Board, you are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 16th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilmember Burke Gonzalez. Present. Councilmember Lees.
Present.
Councilmember Overby. Here. Councilmember Rogers. Present. Supervisor Blair.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning we have 6 public hearings scheduled, after which the board will have a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. And then we have resolutions to approve. But before we get started, you all know that Thanksgiving is coming, and we have many things to be thankful for, and we've all received many blessings. There are a lot of people in our community who are less fortunate in this time of year with seasonal jobs coming to an end, food shortages within families and our community members. There's food insecurity, and I just want to announce that there is a East Hampton Food Pantry food drive on Saturday from 10 to 2 p.m. at the East Hampton Middle School. There will also be volunteers at the Stop and Shop who can give you grocery lists of things that are needed for the pantry. And you can also donate online. We'll have on our social media site the website for that as well. So as we move into the holiday season, think about all the blessings you've received and see if you can't make a difference in someone else's lives. Thank you. Carol, would you please read the COVID disclosure in the first public hearing notice?
The public hearings will be held live and in person by the town board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV channel 22 and available for live stream on the LTV website. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person, by agent, by attorney, or by written comment addressed to the East Hampton Town Clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton. Comments may also be submitted to the Town Clerk by email to cbrennan@ehamptonny.gov. All comments must be received by the Town Clerk by the date and time of the public hearing. Please check the meeting agenda posted on the town's website for any changes and for updated information. Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons on the proposed draft management plan for the Benson Preserve identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel numbers 371, 1, 11.1, and 348, 330. The full text of the management plan is available for inspection on the town's website and is available for inspection in the office of the town clerk at 159 Panago Road during regular business hours.
Thank you, Carol. Do we have a sign-up sheet? Once we've exhausted the sign-up sheet, we'll take by show of hands anyone else who would like to address the board on this public hearing.
It starts here and goes to the second page.
Andy Hammer. And Rusty Schmidt, you'll be next.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Van Scoyac, members of the town board, and also to the public. It's my great pleasure to be here today addressing the board on the Benson Reserve's Invasive Species Management Plan. The seed that began to blossom into this management plan began about 8 years ago when I worked with a Montauk resident named Dan Cahill on the utility line project. Dan sends his regrets. He really wanted to be here, but he just couldn't today. He had a conflict. The utility line project is nearly complete. Phase 5, which is the gateway portion was recently completed. I think there's one remaining phase 6, which is a portion of the old Montauk Highway. That was a Herculean task for sure. Dan Cahill donated his time, expertise, and patience to see that project through. He also organized and supported the funding for the project. While it's unrelated to this invasive species management plan, the utility line project and its resulting viewshed improvements thus far have bolstered the pride and appreciation of the Montauk community. Aspects of the utility line project, the public-private funding and financial models have applicability to the implementation of the proposed management plan on the Benson Reservation. Just by way of background, the Benson Reservation is approximately 39-acre property located on the south side of Old Montauk Highway. Its somewhat awkward name derives from the filing of a map in 1905 by Arthur Benson, which reserved rights over the property to grantees depicted on the development map for their common use and enjoyment. The property is essentially a reserve area as we would define it today. It also has a litigious past. A prior owner, Biazzi Sun Beach, tried to develop and fence the property and was requiring fees to access the property from the community, an activity clearly contrary to the intent of Arthur Benson, as well as the filed covenants. A group of reservation holders sued to enforce their rights and ultimately prevailed. The fences had to come down that were preventing access, and the owner was directed to not interfere with the exercise of these reserve rights in the future. Out of frustration, as I recall, the owner gifted the property to the town of East Hampton, and that actually occurred right when I was working as a town attorney here. The ecological state of the property and prevalence of invasives on the Benson Reservation has long been discussed by residents in the area, the town of East Hampton, and other stakeholders. I remember speaking for years with Rav Friedel, who championed this cause for many years. To properly understand the issue, a working group of interested parties was formed following the recommendation of East Hampton Town. A highly respected landscape ecologist and invasive species expert, Rusty Schmidt from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, was retained. Following 3 years of due diligence, field visits, scientific study, and discussion with the town staff and those who expressed interest in participating, a proposed invasive species adaptive management plan was developed for review and consideration today. One particular point to highlight is that the working group understood the rights recognized by the Benson Reservation, and the plan took great care to respect and enhance these rights. The proposed management plan will not interfere with any of the existing access points used by the public or the reservation holders. In fact, the plan was developed to enhance the ecological and open space values of the property that Arthur Benson recognized. I have reviewed letters suggesting that the reservation or the court decision affecting the property would somehow prevent active management or use of the temporary fencing to achieve our goals. I don't believe these arguments are intellectually honest. They don't recognize the real intent of the reservation and the property and the need to act responsibly as stewards of this property for its intended beneficiaries as well as for future continuance. The supporters of this plan simply believe that invasive species are a tremendous problem for our local fauna and wildlife, a problem that deserves a response that is supported by science and best practices. The opponents of this plan that I've read argue that invasive species are not really a problem, or they are a difficult problem that can't be addressed because it's just too hard. Some have contended this management plan was generated solely to improve the aesthetics of the reservation and was driven by a few wealthy landowners. That is not supported by the science in the management plan, the process that was achieved to arrive at it, or the objectives of the plan. Many of its supporters, including Dan Cahill, received no direct benefit from this plan at all. Dan's house is actually 2 miles to the west of the reservation, has no view of it at all from his property. I can speak to the support that Dan has received from 13 of the 17 most affected properties, basically adjoiners to the property. They emphatically support the plan, and most plan to contribute funding for the project. Rusty will speak to the science inherent in the plan, which would not have been possible without the town's active involvement and help. It has been a pleasure to participate in this process, and I hope it will encourage further engagement of the community in understanding and addressing the issue of invasive species management. I did want to submit a longer version of my presentation. I'm limited to 3 minutes, which isn't a lot to condense a few years. And I also wanted a letter that I had written to the board dated September 8th, included in the record as well. It certainly details more of these arguments than I have time to present today. Other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Rusty Schmidt.
Yes. Thank you, Supervisor Van Soyek and the board. A little bit about me. I'm a landscape ecologist, self-imposed title. I've been doing restoration work for 30 plus years, and I'm also a certified SWIP inspector and installer. So SWIP is the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Programs. So that's a little bit also behind my background, and I've been doing ecology and invasive species management for since I was 18. So it's been a while. Why is this project critical? So the coastal ecologist, and two of my favorite coastal ecologists, Andrea, I'm trying to read my notes, Purist and John Sawyer quoted that they have invasive species pose one of the most catastrophic threats to our coastal zone and our coastal ecology, just as much as development and climate change. And so using that thought process, and then also looking at what the Cornell Cooperative Extension's Ornithological Labs has produced, is that our coastal birds are 35% decreased since the 1970s. And so really, and it's the biggest decline of all the different type of ecosystems. So that's what I came in here thinking about. So if we do nothing on this property, the invasive species that are currently there are going to continue to progress down the bank. And so currently, of the near 40 acres, the bottom third going from east to west, parallel to the beach, is actually in pretty good shape. There's a lot of mostly native plants. Then the next third up the hill, mid-slope, is, and again parallel, is 50-50 invasives and non-natives, and native plants. And the top third, closest to the road, parallel to the road, and about 13.5 acres, is mostly invasive, 95%. And so if we do nothing, it's going to continue to progress. In 2006, a management plan was done by the town, and one of their, and looking at their photographs, not that I was there in 2006, but looking at the photographs, it seems like invasive species since 2006 to today have doubled and tripled in taking over area. And that's in just 18 years. And so it's going to continue to progress down the hill. It will never get to the beach. The beach is a different zone. The plants won't thrive there, but it will continue to push out the bayberry. Don't do that wrong. Bayberry and beach plum closer to the and grasses and flowers that are closer to the shore. And then in 2006 plan, one of their recommendations was to the Natural Resources Department to remove exotic plant species and manage the vegetation. So that was actually part of their plan. With all that, we've created this invasive species plan, and I brought out Bill Jacobs from LISMA about 2.5 years ago to walk the property with me before we started, to make sure that I was not seeing something that wasn't a good viable option. And so we walked the property, we talked about options of restoration, and we talked about techniques. He agreed with me that this is a viable project, and that he provided a whole series. He and I were brainstorming brainstorming, coming up with a whole series of techniques and methodologies. And we then took those methodologies over the last 3 years and whittled them down to what would be feasible and what would be allowable within the town. So then with that, we came down to 2 options that I would like to start with, though it's an adaptive management plan that will change and modify over time with other methodologies as we see things progress. If something shows up that's not there currently, we will be able to manage that as well. So of that, we have looking at doing a mechanical zone in about half of it, 7.5 acres. One of the worries that we've been thinking about since the beginning is destabilization of the zone. So the first part is we're looking at the very top of the slope. The flat areas on the top of the slope is the areas that we want to do with mechanical, which is coming out with a little excavator with a claw and pull out the plants. Those plants will then be disturbing the soil and leaving holes about so big around each of the plants. So when we pull those plants out, we'll smooth it out, drop seed native to the area, but not just native to the area from the local site, spread them out, put down a blanket to protect that soil. Before we even start any of that, we're going to put down the best management practices for erosion control and stormwater practices. So we'll be putting up silt fence along the edge and core logs and work carefully. The reason why we're using a mini excavator is that I don't want a bobcat that moves tracks that disturb soil. They're going to go in and come out and reach 30 feet in all directions and pull out the plants, selectively trying to only take out the invasive species and carefully remove them. So if of that 7.5 acres, I would predict about 50% of that soil might have some open ground for the day. Place seed, put down the blanket, secure the blanket, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, and plant plants that are going to restart. And so that should be green within 2.5 weeks maximum before it's revegetated, putting down roots. We're choosing plants that have deep-rooted plants, so we're trying to be very careful on that. And that all disturbed soils will get that native seed and blanket. The other 7 acres is we're looking at using a methodology of goats. So I actually have a presentation that I want to give to you. This way? Yes. So the top page is a graphic of the invasive species on the left and the native species root depths that we're considering using little blue stem, switchgrass, seaside goldenrod, and bayberry on the right have much deeper roots than the roots of the invasive species that we're removing of honeysuckle, privet, multiflora rose. And then the goats themselves, the second part is that I wanted to point out that this is a study that was done by the Nature Conservancy right here in Long Island. And you can see that kind of gives you a summary of the property. But I want to point you back to slide 5, the second page, and slide 9, the third page, fourth page, that has a graph. And in that graph, what I wanted to point out is that our goats actually eat predominantly woody vegetation. Sheep and cows eat herbaceous foods. So they're really, they're not going to be selective. They're going to eat good things as well, but for the most part, they're going to be eating the unwanted plants. And that in those 2 graphics, Oriental Bittersweet has a drop in one season, 5 months with goats, dropped from 90% coverage to 25% coverage on one plot and 25% coverage to 1% coverage on a second plot. Japanese honeysuckle dropped from 10% coverage to 1% and 75% to 15%. Multiflora rose, that's the Rosa multiflora. That's the fourth column, That dropped from 20% to 1% and 25% to 1%. Those are our three main plants that we're trying to go after. But I also want to point out that black cherry, that middle one, that third column, is a native plant, and it did have some hit to it. So they do harm some of our native plants. And black cherry, which we have on the site, dropped from 70% coverage to 60% coverage and 20% coverage to 1%. So it did have an effect on the black cherry. But then the next column, grasses, went up from 10% coverage to 30%, almost a 300-fold increase, and 10% to 20%. So it was really increasing and providing some opportunity for those plants. So last piece, and I'll be really brief. LISMA, Bill Jacobs has then since visited the site without me, has developed, LISMA and Limpy, Polly Wigand also as part of this with, neither of them can actually approve or endorse a plan, and they had, but what they did do has now have created a draft recommendation and consideration plan for the town. And I just got a copy of it literally 5 minutes ago, and I was reading through it quick, and of the things that I wanted to point out, one thing that was really interesting to me is one of the high quality areas, characteristics that should have invasive species removed. They have a whole bunch of pieces, but the one piece is scenic beauty and recreation is qualities that should be considered. And then of the plan, there's three things that are different than from my plan. And those three pieces is to do an, I always get this wrong, oh shoot, what is it called? Invasive plant management decision analysis tool, and it's a horrible acronym, that's why I can never remember it. And it's done by the Nature Conservancy. I ran our project through that program to see if it's a project that should be done or not. And I kept coming up with two answers depending on the species that I was working on as either containment or eradication. That it's not a no, don't do it. It's a consideration and be careful. And then the second piece that they talk about is to track the entire project through IMAP invasives, which is a tool that the state runs, and I totally agree with that. And the third consideration, which I never considered, was that this area was, before it was grazed, it was burned numerous times, and so hence the reason why I kept it as a grassland for so long. They suggest that we consider prescribed fires and burning. And it's something I will consider. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I'm just going to put it in as a consideration.
Thank you, Russ.
Yep, thank you.
Next up, we have Jay Schneiderman, followed by Rav Friedel. Welcome, Supervisor.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Supervisor. Congratulations to the incoming supervisor, and Peter, it's been a pleasure serving with you all these years. So
Thank you.
we've gotten some good things done together. Nice to see everybody. I speak today not as former supervisor or current supervisor of a neighboring town or former legislator, but as president of the Breakers Motel on Old Montauk Highway, a motel I own with my sister, Helen Ficalora. My parents purchased the hotel in the mid-1950s after being assured that the oceanfront property across the street could never be developed. At the time, the property consisted of dunes and sweeping maritime grasslands. Several beach paths transected the property. The ocean views from the motel were breathtaking. The property was named the Hither Plain Reservation, as shown on the 1904 subdivision plan, filed as map number 496, drawn by the prestigious landscape architecture firm of the Olmsted Brothers, best known for designing New York's Central Park. Unlike the Montauk Beach Property Owners Association properties, the ownership of this reservation property fell into private hands, namely a corporation known as Sun Beach Montauk II, which attempted to extinguish the common use rights by erecting a chain link fence blocking beach access. Sun Beach then told properties that they would unlock the gates at the beach paths if they paid them a small fee. Some properties agreed, but my mother fought back. She went up and down Old Montauk Highway looking for people to join in a lawsuit. Very few joined the cause. Some joined in name only, but not financially. My mother led the fight while at the same time battling cancer. It was a stressful time, and every penny from the hotel operation went to fight a lawsuit that dragged on for 12 years. My mother lost her battle to cancer before she could learn that we won the battle to preserve the Benson Reservation. In 1994, Judge Underwood declared that the property was fully burdened with an easement, and our rights to use the property could never again be interfered with. After exhausting all appeals, Sun Beach Montauk II donated the property to the town. Not only has the ownership changed through the years, but this historic park property itself has changed through a lack of management. The reservation went from a picturesque maritime grassland to a thicket of thorny brambles, poison ivy, and non-native species. Not only was habitat for shorebirds and butterflies lost, but gradually much of the view that we depend upon for our business was diminished. A vista that had qualified the eastern portion of Old Montauk Highway as an area of statewide scenic significance was being lost over time to neglect. That determines also in the town's comprehensive plan in that section on scenic resources, the eastern portion. Now, thanks to the help of CCOM and the Cahill family, a detailed plan has been developed to restore the habitat value, the scenic resource value, and the coastal resiliency of the Hither Plain Reservation. My family stepped up financially to save the reservation from development. We stepped up financially to help bury the unsightly power lines, and we are prepared to again step up to help with the cost of the habitat restoration plan. I urge the town board to support this professionally developed plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. And I appreciate that you kept it right to the 3 minutes. Well done.
I'm not used
We have
to that.
We have a lot of people here today, so if you can, summarize your comments and not repeat things that have been said too much by others, then we'll be able to get through the room. I have 17 people signed up to speak. I'm sure there are callers and others by show of hands who would like to speak as well. Rav, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's a sunshine, glorious day in Montauk. I have to go back in my mind and remember that I wrote a letter to the East Hampton Star long before Dan Cahill ever thought about the Benson Reservation, calling for the views to be restored. John Keeshan contacted me, and we approached the Natural Resources Director and the Town Parks Director to try to make this happen. It languished. Jay Schneiderman and I approached the supervisor, Mr. Van Skoyak, to also talk about this project, and it languished. So finally, I decided as the wires were coming down that I should reach someone who has influence through wealth, and spoke to Mr. Cahill, and he supported the idea of restoring the views along the Old Montauk Highway. That's some background, and since I'm the one that started all this and why we're all meeting here today, I figured I better get that on the record and say that there was nobody who wanted this to happen more than me, and now I am having second thoughts. I've been asked by people who believe that this is reckless to make my comments that I mailed to you put them on the public record. Just an aside, you can't do a burn here because you have poison ivy, and if you burn poison ivy, you're going to get that in the atmosphere, and that would be very dangerous. Secondly, as Rusty Schmidt has said in the past, because there are invasives on the north side of the highway, like my hedges, they will reseed themselves in the Benson Reservation no matter what we do. These are dominant species now. I'll read my remarks. I recently returned from my annual trip to the Grand Canyon, where I've been hiking for more than 3 decades. The trail I climbed out on, the notoriously difficult Boucher, was dramatically different than the last time I climbed it. The tropical storm that hit the West Coast in the early fall washed parts of it away. The trail was de-engineered by Mother Nature and was life-threatening to climb. It was like wearing roller skates. If tropical storms in the desert, an 8-inch rainfall in 3 hours a few weeks ago in Italy, and flooding so bad in New England this summer that their trash washed up on the Montauk beaches is the new normal, then there's a very real possibility that the invasive species are pulled out of the Benson Reservation while we're waiting for new plants to take root. The land could be totally undermined by a severe storm. Because of that, I propose you go slow and start with trimming and pruning to restore the ocean views. After all, that is what this project is all about, and to say otherwise is disingenuous. This project has never been on the radar screen. It is an environmental issue in the 44 years that I've had a house here. 40 of them I've been involved as an environmental activist, and come January, I'll be sitting on the CPF committee for 25 years. If the results of trimming and pruning are not satisfactory, you can always invest $1 million in doing what some people want to do today. And initially, as I said, I was one of them. But frankly, it no longer makes any sense to me. That money, even private funding, would be much better spent on Fort Pond, where the kids at Pathfinder Camp can't swim or fish because the water is unsafe. The late Nancy Nagel Kelly was in charge of TNC when they stopped the burns at the Montauk County Park. We talked about it, and she asked me just exactly what are we restoring to? Back when Montauk was Cattleland? Back when it was the Montauk Indian Nation? We don't even know what it looked like back then. The same logic holds true for the Benson Reservation. What period in time should we be restoring to? This is pure conjecture. As I said, this is all about the views, and there's nothing wrong with that. The town of East Hampton uses CPF money to buy scenic easements, and the town-owned Benson Reservation running along the ocean should be scenic. Let's do that as a place to start. Cut, don't kill. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Michael Potts and Suzanne Roxbury following Michael.
I thought you wanted to talk at the same time there for a second. Happens all the time. Anyway, good morning, sirs, madame, friends. I'm not a good speaker, but I am a lifelong resident of 24 Fairview Road off Washington, which is across from the old Montauk Highway, from the Hither Plain parking lot and overlook, where I went to the beach to swim and surf my whole life. My parents, George and Margaret Potts, were instrumental participants in the preservation of the Benson Reservation. Their role, however, plays no part in my opinion. All the components of the proposed Benson Reservation project, which include ecological, legal, and monetary parts, are wrong or bad. I am only going to address the ecological aspect, which is my field of knowledge. I normally don't even mention this because I've been fishing for 50 years, you know, my background is Bachelor of Science in Environmental Biology and Ecology, Florida Institute of Technology, kind of stale from the year of 1978. Then I did a full course complement in regional planning, University of Massachusetts, 1978 to 80, studied under Dr. Stephen Leatherman, who many of you have met and know, and Dr. Paul Godfrey, who hasn't come out this way, but is an equal specialist in coastal ecology and beach dynamics. Why I did not finish my degree. As I was writing my terminal paper, I became disenchanted with the politics, increased my desire to work in the fishing field. And at that time, a few things are nasty now. I don't know who was around during the era of Nancy Gold, Judith Hope, Russell Stein, and the true black and white environmental versus businessman battle of the 70s, when things were happening such as Supervisor Ron Greenbaum carried his gun into this East Hampton town office in case he was attacked by the Democrats. True. The Benson Reservation is in the minority of ocean beach ecosystems in the town of East Hampton. More predominant types include: 1, clay cliffs, mostly to the east, with virtually no vegetation and are only footed by rocks, boulders, or sand. It is expected that rain and wind will naturally erode the cliffs over time, and the ocean will take away what washes down. It is unlikely that these will receive the amazing work done in front of the lighthouse by Georgina Reed and others, which might likely save the lighthouse forever. Any areas would build two cliffs like west of Benson are not as steep, largely vegetated, and are footed by some dune and beach grass and are showing little wear. Hopefully, the houses being constructed there are not too close to the stable slope to do damage. 3, any areas with buildings partially or in the primary dune are close to sustaining partial or catastrophic damage or have been removed. Dr. Beach Leatherman, who I studied under at UMass, was invited here to weigh in on the project to protect our downtown beach. He advised against it. We are in an expensive pickle now because it was done anyway, largely because the money was there. The Benson Reservation, for the most part, is a fairly wide, untouched stretch similar to Nepegue, fronted by beach grass, one of the best beach protectors, and backed up by many other species. These invasive species may not quite have the root system of beach grass, but one cannot argue that they and the whole reservation have stood the test of time, northeasters, and hurricanes. Many of us are concerned about invasive species.
Michael, if you just address the
Oh,
board,
sorry.
please. Thank you.
I like them.
I know you do. That's fine. We all like them, but
What are invasive species? Not truly my specialty, but I don't see this as black and white. Few argue that sea lamprey and zebra mussels are invasive, but when the glaciers dumped the rubble from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and maybe Vermont and New Hampshire, there was no animal or plant life on Long Island for quite a while. Does that make beach grass, grape, sumac, bayberry, poison ivy, and all the others that have been here longer invasive? And maybe at that time, some could have considered it. Anyway, sure, I missed the view a bit, but it is a big gamble to destabilize one of the most stable areas in an attempt to provide for a more scenic vista. It violates the court order and is ecologically wrong. Sincerely, Captain Michael Potts.
thank you, Michael. Suzanne Roxbury, and then Jim Grimes will follow.
Good morning, Supervisor and Town Board. Nice to be here. With Michael, I am also a long-time Montauk resident. I am intimately familiar with the area as I either walk or drive on it on a daily basis. I am strongly opposed to the proposed project involving the removal of invasive species using goats and fencing and excavation due to its potential to destabilize a healthy dune and ecosystem. These so-called invasive species have existed in this area for decades, and will continue to exist through natural pollination. Are they really invasive? First of all, the project does not pass legal muster, as it violates the covenants and restrictions that burden and run with the Benson Reservation, and if approved, is likely to subject the town to years of expensive litigation. My husband's family was a plaintiff in the litigation, stayed for the 12 years, and provided financial funding, which contributed to the successful establishment of the Benson Reserve and protected it from private development. In that litigation, the court required the defendants to remove fencing which had been installed and impose covenants and restrictions that stated that the defendants, quote, were without the right to erect fences, berms, or other structures, end quote, and, quote, were forever barred from making claim to erect such structures. The covenants and effect and restrictions are binding on the town as a current owner. Clearly, the installations of fences and structures for livestock, including panels that are 16 feet long and 5 foot high, secured to posts that are 4 to 5 feet apart, are violative of these covenants. Not only does it not pass legal muster, but it doesn't make sense when one evaluates the risks and the benefits. The benefit is aesthetic and better views for certain neighbors. The risks are the potential destruction of a healthy ecosystem. It is clear that this project should be rejected. In a time of increased weather activity, we cannot afford to experiment with a primary dune and healthy ecosystem as they provide protection against extreme weather. Just yesterday, I read that additional homeowners insurance are pulling out of California. It's already difficult and expensive to obtain home insurance in Montauk. Destruction of the ecosystem leading to a breach could make the ability to procure insurance impossible. There is also a large amount of wildlife in that reserve, including deer, squirrel, rabbits, chipmunks, birds, etc. The removal of their habitat is likely to be harmful to them. In conclusion, the 39-acre reserve is healthy and the ecosystem is sound and not experiencing erosion. There is no need for habitat or dune restoration. We know what happened with the restoration of the Montauk Town Beach, and that it has been a failure that will cost millions of dollars to sustain. Please don't make the same mistake here. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Susan. Jim Grimes, followed by Sue Farnham. Excuse me.
Hey guys, my name is Jim Grimes. Some of you may know me. I'm a lifelong resident of Montauk. And coincidentally, I have studied the grassland, the eastern prairie, that was at one time the dominant plant group across Long Island my entire life, okay? For almost 250 years, this area, along with the rest of Montauk, were held in common by the first settlers in East Hampton, and those lands were managed for the purpose of grazing cattle, sheep, and horses on that land. But prior to that, the Native Americans, for centuries before that, managed the lands in a similar manner for specifically wildlife and hunting purposes. Okay, so there was some wisdom of our first family settling here. Some of that wisdom may have slipped when we had to sell the land to Arthur Benson. But you know what? There was a certain amount of wisdom that came with Arthur Benson, and that is he established this, this preserve area, you might call it, which is the only reason we're arguing about this today. I've stood in this room over many years listening to people fight to try and stop some development, to try and turn back the tide of development. We have an opportunity here today, okay? I listened to Rusty Schmidt's plan months ago, actually it was longer than that ago, and I was skeptical, but I've spent the last almost 50 years doing rehabilitation projects, very similar to this. So a lot of my skepticism I thought were well-founded, and I went through it piece by piece, and you know what? These guys clicked the boxes. Having thought, having considered erodible soils, having considered things, and anybody that stands here and says, oh, well, non-native plants invasive, they don't really present much of a problem. Well, you know, it's a little like rust on your car, okay? You can have a spot of rust, you can leave it there, and it doesn't have much of an effect until time goes by. And gradually, you can let it go until the wheels fall off. And what do you do then? You go out and get another car? We don't have that luxury here. I think there's a great opportunity here for this community to get together to basically right some wrongs and fix things. This is a well thought out plan. It's considerate of the environment. It's considerate of our view corridors. The comments about destabilizing the dunes clearly didn't listen to the points that were made earlier, that those areas are not going to be disturbed because they are the only parts of this preserve area that are presently in a sound sort of ecological state. As somebody that grew up here, what do I miss? I miss the ground nesting birds that don't exist there now, that were dependent on that tall grass prairie to exist. I miss some of the flowers, forbs, that existed there when I was a kid that don't exist there now, other than a few vestiges that you find places, okay? So I'm very much in tune with the opportunities here. I ask this board, consider everything that's been presented here carefully today and recognize the value to what's being proposed, because this is one of the few times that you've got something being placed before you that gives you the opportunity at no cost to this town, to the taxpayers, to fix something and improve it. Please don't blow this chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Sue Farnham, and she'll be followed by Jeannie Nielsen.
Hi, everybody. I was going to read a letter from Third House Nature Center Board, which I'm a member of, but I'm not going to read it. We submitted it. We just are not for the project as it stands 100% right now. As a resident of Montauk, I would just like to ask the board to maybe slow this process down, reconsider the whole project, listen to what people have to say. I clear trails with the Trail Society. I'm on the Third House Board. I've lived in Montauk for a long time. And I think there's invasive species everywhere, and I'm just not quite sure why this project is so crucial and important when we have trails everywhere that need a lot of attention. And I'll just keep it brief. Thanks. Just
Thank you.
Slow it down. It might be going a little too fast.
Jeannie Nielsen.
Just so you can see what I have on. Remember Superstorm Sandy? Okay. Anyway, I'm Jeannie Nielsen. I'm speaking here as a private resident today and not in my elected capacity as your town assessor. I am the third largest property owner along that corridor of the Old Montauk Highway that abuts the Benson Bathing Reserve with a combined acreage of 2.57 acres. The Beachcomber is the largest, it's 5.1. Atlantic Bluffs is 2.6, we're just about equal. Twin Pond being 2.57. Briny Breezes is 1.9 acres. The Breakers is 1.3 acres. The Beach Plum is 1.3 acres, and Seascape is 0.55 acres. I was not and have never been asked to be a part of any discussions on any proposed plans as far back as 2021, when a small group of property owners, town officials, department heads, and others started to meet privately regarding what I refer to as phase 2 of the project after burying the wires recently at what everyone calls the gateway to downtown Montauk. My properties are conveyed as dominant estates by original deed. I am the successor of my parents, Alfred F. and Louise H. Nielsen, who were part of the successful litigation, whose ownership derived from the original grantors. The Breakers versus Sun Beach 2 was the biggest beach access land use case in New York State in 1993. It was successful at the time in that the courts upheld the easements, the covenants, and restrictions benefiting the properties across from the bathing reserve and the public. The town must uphold and honor the rule of law. We are bound to follow the rule of law when operating a vehicle, right? We follow DMV traffic laws that let us know who has the right of way at an intersection, and if we don't stop, we're crashing into each other because no one is following the rule of law. It just becomes arbitrary. The rule of law is a principle under which people, institutions, and entities are accountable to laws that are publicly promulgated, equally enforced, and independently adjudicated. The judiciary is at the heart of the rule of law and requires transparency and also enforceable property rights. Specifically relating to this, the Benson Bathing Reserve litigation moved into the New York State court system under these same rules of law and culminated in Justice Underwood's 1993 decision. Following the rule of law through the court system being independently adjudicated, we arrive at the Underwood decision, which is clear. The town, as the chosen gifted benefactor by Sun Beach 2 and Nicola Biasi, when his last appeal was denied and he had exhausted the appeals process, he turned the parcel over to the town in January of 1999. The easements, covenants, and restrictions run with the property no matter who the owner is, and that includes the town of East Hampton. The town should be soliciting alternative plans that offer solutions that are compatible with the Underwood decision and the rule of law. The town is not above the law. The town can utilize a plan such as the CCOM proposed plan on any of its town-owned properties, just not this property. None of us are actually entitled to ocean views, and neither are the vehicles that move along the old Montauk Highway. It just would be nice. In closing, I am going to ask that the written record remain open for 2 weeks for further written opinions from experts on ocean coastal dune restoration or landscape professionals so the board can make an informed decision based on the rules of law, environmental concerns, and more traditional methods of growth control. It is clear that not all residents are in agreement with the privately funded CCOM plan that they claim to be shovel-ready. The town should re-examine the cost of the project. The future maintenance costs of $25,000 a year are not nearly enough money to maintain future maintenance. When the private funding dries up, and it eventually will, I can see this falling to the taxpayer, possibly as a special district. For the record, during the town's 25 years of ownership, the town has not maintained the property or the paths at all. I know that people have injured themselves on this property and have litigated the town for broken bones and other injuries over the years. There should be no rush to push through a plan that is ill-conceived, environmentally dangerous, and unsafe, and something that residents just don't want. Put the brakes on the project. As an impacted property owner, I want to be on a committee that should be formed by the town board, just as the Montauk Playhouse is set up as a private and publicly funded project. The Benson Bathing Reserve would benefit greatly by an appointed committee of residents and ocean coastal dune restoration professionals to offer the town real solutions and to oversee the maintenance in the future, and not CCOM. Respectfully, Jeannie.
Thank you, Jeannie. Vicki Bustamante, followed by Laura Michaels. And Hudson, do we have any callers on the line?
We do have several callers on the line, yes.
Thank you. We'll get to them shortly.
Good morning, Supervisor and Board. My name is Victoria Bustamante. I am a resident of Montauk. I submitted a letter to the board in regard to this issue, and I am in opposition to the proposed Benson project. The letter I wrote is too long to read here, so I'm going to keep it short. for you, and also because I'm petrified. I believe that this is a Vista project and not an environmental one. There was no unbiased environmental agency that flagged the Benson Preserve as needing an invasive species removal. It was started as a Vista project, so that's pretty clear, I think. I'm trying to cut this down. If East Hampton Town does decide to do this project, then they're really going to have to do this in all of East Hampton Town preserves, because there's no more invasives in the Benson Preserve than any other preserve, if not less. The preserve is full of beautiful native plants. The whole thing is invasives with a mixture of invasives. They're common invasive species. Not all invasive species are created equal. There are some really horrible invasives. There's none in there that are like, oh my God, you know, we need to get in there and remove those. I would support that. I would be the one raising the flag if I thought that was true. I am a botanist. I have my degree in horticulture. I've been working in the plant field for over 45 years. I'm working on the flora of Montauk for the last 10 years. Poised to submit a manuscript on the flora of Montauk. The Benson Preserve doesn't, it is not required to remove the invasives in there. I think it's going to be more disturbing. And all my points are in the letter that I submitted. It's also basically the same letter I submitted to the Star last week. So you can go to the Star and read it, and I'll save time and space here. Let me see if I, yeah, there's beautiful invasives in there. And a lot of comments I've been listening to are presenting the preserve as full of invasives. It's not the case. You walk through there, it is beautiful. There's all assortment, grasses and forbs and shrubs. Oh, and the other point is the existing native species that are there are taller, as tall or taller than the invasive species which are being proposed to be removed. The vista is still going to be obscured by the natives that they leave behind. And there was something I wanted to say. Oh yeah, Montauk, just about all of Montauk is scenic. I mean, where do you go in Montauk where there's not a scenic vista? So this particular stretch, and it is scenic to me. I mean, scenic is in the eye of the beholder. It's still a beautiful scenic vista. Maybe not enough for the people that want a better view. I can ride across the street, but it's beautiful as it is. So I'll leave it at that.
Laura Michaels, followed by Gary Stevens.
Good morning, Laura Michaels, resident of Montauk. I stand before you with profound concern and urgent plea regarding the proposed restoration project for the Benson Bathing Beach Reserve. As a devoted member of this community, I see several troubling aspects of this project. Adherence to established procedures, the need for transparency and community inclusivity, and the overall commitment to the well-being of the reserve. With a 70-year record of environmental stability confirmed by Rusty Schmidt of Pope Nelson Voorhees, the Benson Reserve boasts a thriving ecosystem of coastal and common birds, wildlife, native plants, and an abundant supply of milkweed for the monarchs, among other wonderful plants. Despite having invasives, it has proven resilient over hurricanes and nor'easters. However, the proposed restoration project, seemingly driven by external factors such as improved vistas rather than a genuine environmental need, raises concerns and questions about its necessity. I wholeheartedly agree with Victoria Bustamante's letter to the editor on November 9th. Victoria is beyond your typical botanist. She is an expert, and she is a cherished and respected member of our community. Initiated by a prominent Democratic Party and CCOM donor, the proposal engaged Nelson Pope Voorhees without exploring alternative proposals. It appears that perhaps the consultants never got the opportunity to state whether this is really needed. Ongoing closed-door discussions for 2 years, excluding crucial stakeholders, and the failure to schedule a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting and a public hearing for the entire town board of East Hampton, and the entire town of East Hampton raises concerns about that transparency. Without the persistence of 3 East Hampton residents, myself, Jeannie Nielsen, and others, we wouldn't be going through this process right now. Kevin McAllister. From my perspective, having run a successful digital agency for most of my life, I've always gotten a better product from engaging my team of experts in collaboration discussions. East Hampton is filled with smart, educated people. Let's use them. A prudent idea would be what we call in the tech world a minimal viable product, MVP, which gives an adopted plan the opportunity to test the idea on a small scale and assess the validity or the invalidity of the plan. I have posted several scientific papers from Ecology Today scientists on the Montauk website that were scientific findings on dune restoration for Point Reyes in California. I encourage all of you to read them. The findings are alarming and consistent with what Victoria has already stated. The exposed soil would be vulnerable to erosion and could become an open seed bed for weeds to germinate, perhaps even new species. In case point of Point Reyes, that's exactly what happened. This is such an environmental risk on this property that we simply cannot operate out of a box. As the elected representatives of the people of East Hampton, the town board holds a critical responsibility as the lead agency on this project. Accepting only one proposal, particularly one that involves a mechanism like goats that will lead to litigation between the town board and the property owners, amounts to a dereliction of duty. A comprehensive environmental impact statement is imperative. The existing EAF, as I see it, needs to be corrected. Submitted questions number 9 and 10 were answered incorrectly. In contrast to the Benson Reserve, urgent water quality issues persistent throughout Montauk, including Fort Pond, are prevalent. CCOM's allocation of $25,000 annually to floating wetlands without supportive data raises questions about their resource prioritization. Green DEC grants for innovative solutions that are permanent, such as bioswales, present viable, permanent opportunities to address water quality concerns, yet no one, CCOM, the town, Natural Resources, has championed this cause. And it was submitted to you 3 years ago. And while I won't speak for Nelson Pope Voorhees, I'm pretty confident if you showed them other areas of Montauk, such as the decimated dune system of the important public asset of Ditch Plains Beach, that they would choose the urgency of that project over the Benson Reserve. The involvement of a private donor in shaping this project's direction challenges the principles of transparency and community engagement. In my 25 years living in Montauk, I have never in my life witnessed a project as divisive as this one with the community. The question of whether one needs to be in the 1% to be heard raises important concerns, not only about the fairness of decision-making process, but also about the ability to question its underlying intent. This project first started at the Montauk Beach Owners Association when their board didn't agree with the plan. Benson Reserve was offered to them as an option. To ensure transparency and community trust, the town board must solicit requests for proposal responses to verify that this project is actually necessary. You need to enlist our community of experts that sit in this room together to hash out whether this important public asset is needed and if the stability needs to be restored. The Water Quality Improvement Project Program is a competitive reimbursement grant that funds projects that directly improve water quality and promote flood risk reduction and enhance flood and climate resilience or protect drinking water. The marine habitat at the Benson Reserve is large and stable. This property simply does not meet the grant requirements of water quality improvement. It's a Vista project and has been disguised as a water quality improvement project. The town must challenge and prioritize the use of finite DEC grant money in the town of East Hampton. As part of the community's active engagement, the Montauk Benson Reserve Community Survey had 252 residents participate. The survey results provide valuable insight into the sentiment and opinions of Montauk residents regarding the proposed Benson Reserve project. 59.4% are not in favor, 14.3% just trim the growth. 13.5%, the town should hire an independent consulting firm for a second opinion. 6.0% are in favor, 3.6% are undecided, and 3.2% make it a referendum question on the ballot on November 7th. It's too important to be decided by a few people. But I don't think the town board wants their legacy to be the destruction of the Benson Bathing Reserve. I ask that you hold the record open for 2 weeks to allow all residents who are unable to attend in person and have the opportunity to view the public hearing on LTV. I want to remind everybody that all of the people that live on Montauk Highway, most of them, and or have hotels there, have hedges in front of their hotels and hedges in front of their properties that block the view of even the vegetation that's growing there. Even if you cut the reserve using traditional methods, they will still not have a view. Most people who live in that area have a view from the second floor and their hills. So they've already got the view. It's just people who are driving down the highway. If you require additional information or would like to discuss these survey results further, please do not hesitate to let me know. I appreciate your attention to this matter and look forward to continued collaboration for the betterment of Montauk. Thank you.
Gary Stevens, followed by Kevin McAllister.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm not very good at this either, but I've been here 57 years. I've driven down that highway probably more than anybody. And it just seems like somebody's trying to go a little overboard, like the gentleman was saying, oh, you bring an excavator in and you cherry pick. Are you gonna check for turtles? Are you gonna check for rabbit nests? Are you gonna do any environmental survey? Where you going in? There's just a lot of things here that just doesn't make sense. If you want your view from the motels, maybe you get a bunch of people together to talk about maybe trimming some of the higher stuff. But I would definitely leave it alone. It's been there since Montauk was here, and it shouldn't go anywhere. I say just leave it alone and really think before you do anything about it. Like everybody's talking environmental impact on it. Thank you.
McAllister, followed by Betty Smith.
Good afternoon, Town Board. Kevin McAllister, I'm founder of Sag Harbor-based Defend H2O. The board is somewhat aware of my credentials. I hold a Master's of Science in Coastal Zone Management. Coastal processes and interventions was the focus of study. My thesis was on dune restoration as an alternative approach to shoreline hardening. I've written code for Palm Beach County pertaining to dune management, trimming and pruning specifically, and I've managed mile-long projects both in private sector as well as public lands. So I'm well-versed in dune management. My review of the project included the Nelson Pope report. I've looked at all the aerials available to me going back to 1962. And I've spent about 4 hours on site with the complete survey. I will tell you, let me clarify one thing. Maritime grasslands, this is dune land. If you go to the west, you'll pick up on the bluff line. There's a fringe dune that fronts that bluff line, and then it flares to, as we go to the east, connecting ultimately to Fort Pond. In other words, the dune field widens substantially. It's a massive coastal feature. Looking at 1962 aerials, you can clearly see it's what we call the pioneer zone. In other words, the grasses are coming in first. Over time, as it's stable, in come the woodies, the shrubbery, the scrub zone. And then we get deeper, further back up into the forest zone. What we have intact on this property is a very expansive pioneer zone going up into a scrub zone. So what you see on the 1962 aerials is suggestion that there are maritime grasses. That's a different environment. This is dune grasses in there. This was a successional dune. Again, going from grasses to the woodies. Ms. Bustamante, Victoria, you're right on point with respect to the extent of invasives in there. I got on my knees, I crawled up into the, again, into the scrub. You could see the undulations of dune formation, aeolian wind-blown processes. Again, this is a dune in the works. You start to get up into the scrub, deeper into the scrub, and what I have, certainly without clearly defining, but it's a swath about the first 50 feet along the roadway, close to activity and disturbance. The same thing on the pathways. The vines are growing up and above, so you have essentially a vine canopy. The management of that area certainly is removing those vines, all the honeysuckle, trying to at least crop it down to see what you have, but it is interspersed with natives. There's scrub zone. This is a natural system in there. To suggest that we're going to bring in machinery and goats and open up some 13, 14 acres for exposure, cropping down native plants only to basically restore a pioneer zone, the grasses that are all this high so we can see unobstructed view corridors. I think the recommendation, certainly there might be an opportunity to achieve view corridors through there once the vines are pulled down. There's even some cropping to see what you have. And then selective surgical removal of those invasives. So you at least control and have some semblance of openness to see what happens. But again, we are talking a scrub zone. So to restore it back to, again, herbaceous and flowers, you know, Montauk daisies and whatever, some ground cover. Come on, this is wrong. This is not the way to go. The bigger concern of what I see, there's a major seam into that dune complex on the west end from the stormwater. You have a blowout of the dune, the primary dune in there. You get back in here, you can see that gully had completely washed out over time. And I know, you know, as development over the decades, all that water is coming down and now just washing, but that's going to be a major problem. That's your seam in a storm event. This community is blessed with a robust dune system in this area. That's the protection, that's resiliency. Obviously, or I should say, in fairness, there's invasive control that's warranted in there. Oh, before I forget, this took me aback. In the report, I think a third tier, the black pine, there's clusters of pine on the eastern end as well as even on the near the Ford Dune. That's problematic. That's exotics that need to be basically cut and chipped. Pull a chipper in there and just splatter that wood right where it stands. But that is problematic. That's invasive control, and yet it's not even mentioned in this report. Some of these, again, the management of the pathways. You know, let's have uniform management so we are ensuring that these pathways are stable. They're not creating, again, gullies where then you create seams. So I think there is some compromise here, but again, this is a very surgical approach. And if we're talking real resiliency, this is not a major overhaul because, you know, this broad brush that the exotics have taken over. Come on, I got into the documents. I see where they cookie cut from different, they cut and pasted. You know, let's get the low-lying vegetation in here. It's not suitable. It wouldn't have grown there from the beginning. This is transitional. Thank you so much for your time, and I do hope you'll consider my comments.
Ed Smith, followed by Jamie LaDuke.
Hi, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to express my thoughts. I'm not an expert, but I certainly have strong opinions about this project. I have lived in Montauk for over 40 years, and I moved to the Springs 6 years ago. But Montauk has been and still occupies a special place in my heart and thoughts. I hesitated to speak today, but the issue of the Benson Preserve is of special interest to me. It represents the preservation of the environment versus trying to reinvent it. Climate change is upon us, ripping up so-called invasives that have held up this fragile area from erosion can and will bring unintended consequences. You don't have to be a scientist. We all know what it's like to maintain our own properties. It's both expensive and an endless task. CCOM was originally formed to protect our environment, not to rip it apart. It is a lesson in futility and a waste of time, money, and other resources. Carol Morrison was always at the forefront of preserving the Benson property as it was. Montauk is the last of the special wild and natural places, already blighted with 2 massive buildings on 2 small parcels of property. This board has a responsibility to protect and preserve our natural environment. The CPF project has been a success since its origin. The geotubes on the beach were not successful at all, despite what some of the scientists claim. It seems that we, and not the plants, are the most damaging of the invasive species. The town board has a responsibility to protect this natural resource. I addressed this board years ago concerning the bags on the beach debacle in order to protect the motels. Look how that turned out. When will we ever learn?
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Jamie LeDuc. I am the Director of Environmental Advocacy at CCOM. I earned a graduate degree in biological sciences studying the interactions between native and non-native species. Prior to working for CCOM, I spent actually over 13 years working for the National Park Service, where my main focus was preventing the spread of invasive species. So I've witnessed firsthand the profound impact that invasives can have on our ecosystems. They can destroy biodiversity, ruin habitat, cause extinctions of native plants and animals. So I stand before you today in strong support of the Invasive Species Adaptive Management Plan for the Benson Reserve. I think it represents a great step forward in our collective effort to preserve and protect Montauk's environment. The science behind this plan is solid and founded on years of research and experience. It incorporates strategies to combat invasives in a comprehensive and sustainable way. And I think it could also be used as a blueprint for other infested areas. So I have some things I want to submit for the record. First, I have copies of CCOM's mission. One of our main focuses is environmental sustainability, and invasive species awareness and removal is part of the work we do. Second, I have a list of over 560 people who signed a petition supporting the Benson Reserve Restoration Project. And then lastly, I have a copy of the presentation we gave to the Montauk Citizens Advisory Committee on September 11th, 2023. That presentation comes along with a comprehensive list of questions and answers, and the minutes from that meeting are included. I was there. We received overwhelming support. The committee voted 16-1 in favor of supporting the Benson Reserve Restoration Project. So I have these things to share, but in conclusion, I wholeheartedly urge you to support this plan. I think we owe it to the land, the native species, and our future generations. So thank you so much for your attention.
Leo Dawn. And that will conclude the folks that have signed up to speak. I will go to the phones. Excuse me.
Joan is up.
I don't see Joan's name on the list. Oh, I'm sorry. It is there. It was crossed out. Joan was actually supposed to be next. Come on, Joan. Come on. All right. So sorry. I apologize for that. I skipped over.
Hello, Supervisor and Town Board members. I'm Leo Daunt, President of the Montauk Chamber of Commerce and a business owner in downtown Montauk. I would have a longer letter here to give you guys, so I'll try and save some of the time for Joan. We are here, our board, many fellow chamber members in the immediate vicinity of the Benson parcel stand ready to support CCOM and East Hampton Town in advancing this essential project. We're completely behind the town on doing this. We talked to some of the experts. We're not experts in this field, but we do trust the data and the science of removing these invasive species and replanting the native ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Joe McGivern. Apologies, Joan, for missing you on the list. And then after Joan's done, I will go to the telephone lines to take comment, and then we'll circle back if there's anyone else in the room has comment.
I'm Joan McGivern from Toomey, Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, and Quateraro, and I'm here representing Jeannie Nielsen, her revocable trust, Twin Pond at Montauk and Twin Pond Motel. When the town received the Benson Reserve as a gift, it didn't receive it free and clear. It received subject to certain negative easements, as you've heard, in favor of property owners in a swath of lots. Actually, this has sort of been lost. There are 245 lots in all that directly or indirectly have rights over the Benson Reserve. The Twin Pond entities, that is Twin Pond at Montauk and Twin Pond Motel, are among owners of real property across from the Benson Reserve, and they are the beneficial owners of these easements. These properties are what's called dominant estates, and they hold an easement over the Benson Reserve. As you've already heard, the easements are subject to a decade of litigation in which in 1994, Justice Underwood wrote, defendant's property, that is the Benson Reserve, is burdened with a covenant, and it is without the right to erect fences, burns, or other structures on the reservations, and are forever barred from making claim to erect such structures. The court went on to direct the defendants to remove the fences and structures that they'd put up and to restore the reserve to its original open and natural state. This decision was upheld in 1996. Now the town proposes to approve a plan which calls for fences and structures to be erected in direct violation of Justice Underwood's decision. It appears no other alternatives have been considered which would not violate these easements, and that's unfortunate. Indeed, it appears there's been such a rush to endorse this plan that no proper environmental impact study has been done of the plan, which is classified as a type 1 action under CEQA and the town's own code. On July 19th, in a press release, the town openly endorsed the plan. And 2 weeks later, on August 4th, it issued a negative declaration. It was a foregone conclusion. Thus, it comes as no surprise that the town has conducted a pro forma de minimis assessment, which failed to take a hard look at or otherwise identify any relevant areas of environmental concern, failed to thoroughly analyze the impact of the plan, and failed to issue a reasoned elaboration for its decision. If the town insists on going forward with this plan, contrary to Justice Underwood's decision, the Twin Pond entities fully intend to enforce their rights via a complaint and a petition, copy of which I have in draft, and I'd like to submit for the record so it doesn't come as a surprise to the board if the board decides to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, that concludes the sign-up list. I would like to go to the telephone lines and see if there are any callers who would like to address the board on this topic. After we've exhausted the phone caller list, we'll come back to the room, and if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, I'll take them by show of hands. Hudson, can you hear me?
I can hear you. We've got a number of callers on the line. Let me open one up right now.
Okay, let's check to see if they are calling with regard to this particular hearing.
Caller 5720. Do you have anything to say regarding this?
Yes, I do.
All right, you are on the line.
Okay.
Please state
My
your
name
name.
is Danielle Frisch. My name is Danielle Frisha. I am the operations director at CCOM, and I have been authorized to read into record 2 testimonies. First, from the Nature Conservancy, and second, First Coastal. So first letter from the Nature Conservancy. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on the invasive species management plan for the Benson Reserve in Montauk. I submit this input via email to the town clerk and have asked a colleague from Concerned Citizens of Montauk to present it during the live hearing. The draft plan that has been made available takes a thoughtful and conservative approach. Given my personal focus on shoreline management in my role as the Climate Adaptation Director at the Nature Conservancy in New York, I particularly appreciate the fact that this plan will focus on the upland portions of the preserve, improving habitat, and increasing its ability to stabilize sand in the future, while leaving today's most critical bluff stabilizing vegetation undisturbed. This plan is also designed to minimize adverse impacts to water quality and structural integrity by limiting herbicides and testing innovative control methods such as goat grazing in a systematic way. Many years ago, the Nature Conservancy demonstrated some success with goat grazing on woody vegetation at the Suffolk County Farm, and this will be an excellent test of this method in a more natural environment. This project is designed to utilize several different tactics and therefore has the potential to inform future invasive species control projects on Long Island. I encourage the town and its contractors to widely share the results and lessons learned through this process. Lastly, this plan has gained the support and surrounding community, which I believe is essential to success. So through this project, neighbors will have the opportunity to learn about native vegetation and be more likely to contribute to the protection of this property through their own landscaping choices. Visitors to the property also serve as the first line of defense in monitoring and notifying the appropriate parties if and when invasive species begin to regrow. I encourage the town board to adopt this management plan and work with local supporter to implement it, and I look forward to following the process. Sincerely, Allison Branco, PhD, Climate Adaptation Director, the Nature Conservancy in New York. Letter 2 from First Coastal. Dear Supervisor Van Scoyoc and town board members, I have reviewed the management plan for the above referenced project and support the innovative and comprehensive approach recommended. Invasive species management is a continuously challenging opportunity to enhance natural plant communities that are the building blocks of the natural system. The recommended plan rises to this challenge and offers a unique opportunity to restore these vital natural communities. As a coastal geologist and environmental scientist practicing on eastern Long Island for 40 years, I am impressed with the mix of management approaches recommended in this management plan. The management plan recognizes the variety of terrain and habitat within the Benson Reserve and applies an appropriate solution for each area. Restoration of the native plant habitat will improve both the coastal resiliency of this area as well as the environmental diversity and abundance. I urge the town board to adopt this plan and provide support as necessary for implementation of this extraordinary worthwhile effort. Thank you for your time and attention. Sincerely, First Coastal, Aram Tertunian, President, First Coastal. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Hudson, if you go to the next phone caller, please.
All right, caller 5340, you're online.
Hello. Hi, this is Mia Chair-Teach from the Montauk Historical Society. I'm the executive director, and I would like to read a little statement. On October 9th, 2023, I sent a letter to the East Hampton Star on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Montauk Historical Society, of which I am executive director, to assert our support for the Benson Reserve project. Today, having read and heard additional arguments against the project in letters to the Star and elsewhere, I remain firm in my initial assessment of its value and reassert the support of my board as well as my own personal support for this endeavor. The reasons for moving ahead with this project are compelling and are clearly and very convincingly laid out in the Invasive Species Adaptive Management Plan that was presented at the Montauk CAC in September. The Montauk Historical Society supports the Benson Reserve project because, 1, it is based on solid scientific reasoning and evidence. 2, it will be continuously monitored and evaluated as to its efficacy. 3, it will address important environmental problems that have been identified by the town. And 4, it will not be funded by East Hampton taxes. Win-win. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mia. Hudson, if you'd please go to the next caller.
Caller 7404.
Hello.
You are on the air.
Hi, this is, I want to just double check, 7404?
Correct.
Correct? Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Martha Kreisel. I'm a member of the board of the Concerned Citizens of Montauk, and I'm reading a statement on behalf of Celine Keating that has been submitted to Carol Brennan. And the statement is as follows. My name is Celine Keating. I lived for many years at the Atlantic Bluffs Club Co-op on Old Montauk Highway, directly across from the Benson Reservation. I served on the board of the Bluffs during the time of the successful litigation to save the beachfront parcel from development from 1989 until the favorable decision issued in 1994. Today, I fully support the adoption of the Invasive Species Adaptive Management Plan for the Benson Reserve. As background, Atlantic Bluffs was part of a coalition of deed holders opposing construction along that beachfront parcel. During that battle, Nicola Biase offered to drop his litigation in exchange for a promise that no houses would be built directly in front of our co-op. The Bluffs board was tempted to accept, but some of us felt strongly that the entire parcel should remain open space. We turned to the Concerned Citizens of Montauk. CCOM agreed to do fundraising on the condition that the Bluffs reject the deal and to save the entire parcel for the good of all Montauk. Thanks to CCOM's added support, we were able to continue the fight. To this day, I have kept a copy of that letter of agreement. With the judge's ruling in our favor, the stretch of dune and beach has remained for all of Montauk to enjoy ever since. A few years after the litigation was concluded, the owner offered the parcel to the town. With that accomplished, it became the town's responsibility to maintain. The land, however, has never been maintained. Over the decades, there has been an increase in the unwanted growth of invasive species. In 2006, the town began to develop a plan for remediation, but it stalled. I've also served on the town's Nature Preserve Committee, which focuses on maintaining land under town ownership. Although the Benson Reservation was often brought up for discussion, other priorities for habitat restoration and removal of invasives always took precedence. Now there is the will, along with the potential of outside resources, to tackle it. Some critics say that the goal of the Benson Reservation Habitat Project is merely to protect the views of those property owners who live across the way from the beach. However, most of those fortunate to have homes and co-ops along that stretch already have glorious views because the land to the north of the Old Montauk Highway is elevated. As with the saving of the parcel itself, any enhanced views will have most impact on all who walk or drive along the road. The key concern is how to prevent the invasives from undermining the stability of the dunes, and beyond that, how to strengthen our shorelines to respond to the threat of sea level rise. This parcel can be a model for others throughout Montauk. I would urge all those who want to see the best for this parcel to come together to discuss how best to take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you, Celine Keating.
Thank you, Martha. Hudson, if you could go to the next caller, please.
All right, caller 9660, you are on the air.
Hi, this is David Freudenthal. I'm the board chair of Concerned Citizens of Montauk, and want to affirm the support you've heard from other board members, from staff, and from the advocates for this project. You have heard the reasons that we believe that CCOM believes that this is an appropriate science-based solution to protect this valued land, and Celine's testimony really spoke to CCOM's long history with this preserve and why we have a stake in its future. CCOM has history. A prior speaker spoke to reference Carol Morrison, and just to say that that is Carol. Actually, that's part of our history here. We, a few years ago in 19, we were in collaboration with the town and other community groups. We were part of the successful removal of the invasive species at Fort Pond at Carl Morrison Park, named after our former president. We see this as integral to our work in support and care of the more than 70% of land that CCOM helped to save. As prior speakers have noted, this has been a town priority. We are proud to work and partner with the town to advance this, and we look forward to a successful project. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next caller, please.
All right, caller 8217.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Carney Iacono, and I live in Hither Hills. My family has owned a home here for over 60 years, and we all remember well the native wildflowers and grasses on the dunes of the Benson Reserve and beach access paths, and the full views of those beautiful beaches from the old Montauk Highway. We've been dismayed for years as invasive kudzu and non-native bushes have taken over, choking out some of my family's favorites, high bush blueberry, wild raspberry, and bayberry. As children, my sisters and I would pick wild raspberries along paths, not something that is quite as feasible today. Additionally, I'm very familiar with using goats for grazing and pasture management, as I live next door to lots of them when we resided as expats in Obereden, a town in Canton Zurich, for 7 years. Using goats is a common practice to preserve biodiverse mountain pastures in Switzerland, especially focused on eradicating green alder, an invasive that needed management to protect valuable grazing land. I attended Rusty Schmidt's presentation of the management plan at the September Montauk CAC meeting and was impressed by its comprehensiveness. I was especially interested to learn that the invasives that are encroaching are shallow-rooted and not as stabilizing to the dunes as native grasses. I therefore urge the town board to adopt the invasive species adaptive management plan for the Benson Reserve. I remember the terrain of the dunes of Benson Reserve from years gone by, and I'm hopeful when the Benson Reserve property management plan is successful, my neighbors in Hither Hills might consider a similar program someday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next caller, please, Hudson.
All right, and caller 9370, you are on the air. Caller 9370.
I'm here, thank you. Hi, good morning, Supervisor-elect, Town Board members, and Clerk Brennan. My name is Jessica James. I am a resident of Montauk, speaking today to express my strong support for the Town Board's adoption of the Invasive Species Adaptive Management Plan for the Benson Reserve. I have studied the draft of the plan, and it is comprehensive, thoughtful, and it thoroughly addresses the management needs of this important property. There are some who claim that this is not an environmental project, but rather a vista project, benefiting a few privileged homeowners. That is not correct. The objective of the plan is to remove the non-native and invasive shrubs and vines that are choking the native trees and shrubs. It is not to remove the native trees and shrubs. This project will not create uninterrupted ocean views, and that is not the objective. It is fortunate that the reserve is host to a multitude of native plants, but unfortunately that is not the case in the approximately 14 acres of concern closest to the road, where 95% of the vegetation is invasive. The native plants that are proliferating in the other 26 acres will be untouched, and in fact will serve as a seed source for those 14 acres. The plan minimizes the soil disturbance using customized methods that include goats on steep slopes. Erosion protection measures will be implemented before and during work. The native plants being introduced are well suited to this micro ecosystem and are plants and seed from other parts of the subject property that are native and well established. There will be no disruption near the coast or mid-slope areas. It is noteworthy that since acquiring the property in 1999, East Hampton Town has been trying to determine how best to manage it. A draft management plan from way back in 2006 described the property as a coastal heathland type of community that had been infiltrated with many invasive plants, and that if left unmanaged, these interlopers would take over the entire property, to include the low dune and beach portions of the site. Included in the list of recommendations from that 2006 management plan was a directive to the Natural Resources Department to remove exotic plant species and manage the vegetation. And a version of this language is also contained on page 5 of the current management plan. In 2021, at the request of neighbors, the town had recommended the commissioning of a report to determine the ecological health of the Benson Reserve as well as management plan options to ensure its long-term viability. Since that time, several neighbors, along with CCOM, the town's Department of Natural Resources, as well as the planning and legal departments, have been involved in shaping the direction of this work that is being considered today. As a local beekeeper, I am particularly attuned to and aware of the importance of maintaining a balance in our fragile Montauk plant communities. I believe that this project may help to restore some balance in the Benson Reserve and give our native plants a fighting chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next caller, please.
We have no more callers on the line.
I'll go back to the room. Anyone else wish to address the board? Yes, Chris?
Good morning, nice to see you all. Supervisor.
Afternoon now at this point.
State of mind. I have to say, last time I saw you, I thought your Halloween costume was appropriate.
Yeah, and I wish you'd brought your voice modulator so that you could sound like you did on Halloween too.
So my name is Chris Fund. I'm a lifelong resident of Montauk, and the reason I'm here is about the current or proposed law for the bicycles in Montauk, electric bikes.
Okay, so this is part of the public hearing for the Benson Reserve, so if you'll hold those thoughts until we get to the public comment portion. I'm sorry, that'll be a little while yet.
Okay, I'll sit down.
Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to address the board on the Benson Reserve? Madam, and then you, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your time today, Town Supervisor, members of the Town Board, and Town Clerk. My name is Valerie Vergona. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Peconic Estuary Partnership. And I do want to preface PEP's statement by saying that Benson Reserve is not located within the Peconic Estuary watershed and therefore does not fall under our comprehensive conservation management plan. However, when it comes to issues like this, invasive species, they clearly pay no mind to environmental boundaries. And PEP wishes to voice our support for this project to quell the spread of these prolific invasive species. As a national estuary program, the Peconic Estuary Partnership is in support of invasive species removal, and that is part of our CCMP. Coastal erosion and decrease in biodiversity are increasingly devastating issues for all of the East End. So research does show, and I can't stress this enough, that invasive species often outcompete native plants and animals, threaten biodiversity, reduce protection from erosion, and reduce habitat quality. So PEP urges the town board to adopt this plan and help protect our natural resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Valerie. And you, sir? Can I see a show of hands of anyone else who wishes to address the board? Okay, so we have 3 more. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jim Barnes. I hadn't planned to speak at all today, but I have a house, or I have a business there.
I'm sorry, Jim, could you just state your last name again?
Barnes.
Barnes, thank you.
I have a property across the street from that Benson deed, And I also owned, years ago, the Surfside Inn. So I'm a resident there for about 43 years. And over the years, I've noticed a few things, but probably unconsciously noticed them. After a few hurricanes in Montauk, Bob, Gloria, and Sandy. Sandy, not so much, it didn't do much damage on our property, on the ocean side for us. But our path going down to the beach, at the end of the dune where the grass line is, there was an 8 to 9 foot drop. And both times it happened, but it was stopped by that grass line. So I'm assuming that that's a good thing because it didn't go any further, it didn't break through. And if you look down the beach in either direction, it went all the way past Gurney's, the 8 foot, 9 foot drop. In fact, there were pipes in the beach in Gurney's coming up out of the sand. I don't know what those were. Hopefully they weren't sewer pipes. But I just wanted to say that. And also, we have hedges in front of our place. And the hedges basically are to keep the noise from the road. Cars come along there at 50, 60 miles an hour sometimes, so the noise is from that. And the hedges were planted in 1925 in front of this house. I have pictures going this high. So the hedges, and we have a spectacular view as it is now. So I don't know which way this is going to go, and hopefully it's the right way. I don't know what else to say. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And Kay?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm Kay Tyler. I live with my family of 5, including 3 young children, full-time in Hither Hills. It's the neighborhood right down the street from Benson Reserve. I support the invasive species adaptive management plan for Benson Reserve property for 2 meaningful reasons beyond its benefits of restoring the native habitats and increasing the durability and resiliency from the coastal environment. First, I want my kids to enjoy the bluffs and shoreline like I can when they are adults. I respect the science that says reintroducing native species along the shoreline will strengthen it and make it more resilient to the degenerative forces of the ocean, particularly in an era of global warming where storms are more frequent and stronger. So I think we Montaukers of today need to do the right thing for our children and strengthen Benson naturally while it is still intact and capable of improvement, rather than waiting for invasives, time, and the unpredictable forces of nature to degrade it irreparably. Second, I expect my town to take care of its land just as I take care of mine, and just as I want my neighbors to take care of theirs. As responsible neighbors, we take care of our properties, removing weeds and vines, certainly even spending money to keep everything nicely kept. We put up bird feeders to attract wildlife, erect fences and keep our dogs and kids safe, build retaining walls and dig ditches to divert water. And yes, if someone overclears their land, the town requires us to revegetate with native species of plants. The town too must take care of its land, and we should want to, particularly when taxpayers will not be on the hook. And if restoring the Benson Reserve to its native condition strengthens the coastline and improves the view when I drive down the old highway, all the better. It's a win-win-win. I would urge the town board to adopt this plan and take action in furtherance of its goals and methodology to protect our natural resources and our shared quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. And we have one more. Andy, did you raise your hand? And then Sarah?
Sarah. Go ahead. You go.
All right, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Conway. I've talked extensively in the last few days to the people involved and talked to Rusty, who designed the plan, for a couple of hours. What I see here is a stable dune, and I was assessing whether I felt that the potential for unintended consequences was there versus the benefits. And I could not see that it was worth taking the risk for unintended consequences there in a dune that is vital to Montauk's protection. And I feel that I've heard over and over again today, like if this works well here, it could be used as a blueprint somewhere else. If we see what the goats do there, we could do more with them elsewhere. This is not an area to experiment on. It's hasn't been determined that there's an environmental need to do this project here. The dune, there's so many other places in Montauk that need attention, where we can see water coming through areas or whatever, water quality and so many other things. And here we're taking something that's working and we're doing an experiment on it. And there, if you want to experiment on invasive species removal, there are plenty of other places around that are not a dune that is successful right now. And I think there are people in the room who have looked at that there could be further discussion about what you would want to do in this area with insight from people like Kevin and Vicky, who are really looking at the plants there. They're looking at what needs to be done there. They're not looking at from the perspective of we need to remove invasive species, which is what I feel like the perspective of the plan was. We need to remove invasive species. How do we best do it here? And I feel like they're offering a perspective of what needs to be done here. Let's look at what's really here and look at what needs to be done. And I think his point about the gullies and the pathways is very valid. And I think that it would be very beneficial to have people with other perspectives coming at this for what is best for the area, rather than then we just want to remove the invasive species. I agree to keep the record open for 2 weeks for other people that are now catching up, given that they may have seen this and have would like to speak up. And even though I'm against the project, if you were going forward, why would you not just do a pilot portion of this area? You have a goat portion, you have the mechanical portion. I asked Rusty if a pilot portion could be done, and he said he could do it for a year, taking one goat portion, one mechanical, and see what you learn from that to go forward. But I think there's been too much discussion in here today of seeing how this goes, like, whoa, remove invasive species. And this is not the place to experiment. We've got a stable dune there. And one more talk about scenic vistas. I walk in that park all the time. I think it's one of the most scenic vistas in Montauk, right there, from a pedestrian's point of view of using the park, being in the park, as opposed to any concern about cars driving by having a view. Let's just see if I've, So I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it has not clearly been established that it's broke here. We've got to protect our dunes and use your resources and your time to protect other parts of Montauk that are far more vulnerable right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else? Andy? Anybody after Andy? Okay.
I have a question after.
Good afternoon, members of the East Hampton Town Board. My name is Andy Harris. I'm a 20-year resident of Montauk and was chair of the East Hampton Property Management Committee for 7 years from 2014 to 2021. During that time, our committee developed restoration plans for a number of town-owned properties, including Second House and the 4-acre Carol Morrison Park in Montauk. The latter involved extensive invasive species removal and native plant revegetation, resulting in the restoration of a magnificent stand of shads and understory natives on the foreshore of Fort Pond, and the planting of native grasses that have continued to prosper with periodic maintenance from East Hampton Town. Having thoroughly reviewed the draft invasive species adaptive management plan for the Benson property, I strongly endorse its adoption. The draft of the plan that has been circulated is comprehensive, thoughtful, and thoroughly addresses the management needs of this important property. In addition to restoring the native habitats vital to our insect, avian, and mammalian species, the proposed management plan and recommendations upon implementation will increase the durability and coastal resiliency of this property for the benefit of all our residents and visitors. As stated in the testimony provided today by Aram Chichunian, an expert coastal geologist who for many years has been involved in an analysis of all our ocean-facing beaches, this plan will improve both the coastal resiliency of this area as well as the environmental diversity and abundance. We've also heard today that invasive plants pose one of the largest threats to coastal ecosystems, along with development and climate change. And from Rusty Schmidt, that this plan meets the established scientific criteria supporting its implementation. From many credible and well-established local environmental organizations, we have heard that invasive plant species pose a dire threat to our local coastal ecosystems, in that they often outcompete native vegetation while providing few ecological benefits. Of critical importance to the East Hampton coastal community is the benefit of coastal stabilization provided by the deep root structures of our native species, and implementation of the plan is an opportunity to work to protect and restore the integrity of this coastal ecosystem. We have also heard that the overwhelming majority of adjacent neighbors support this plan, and that both oral and extensive written testimony from the community also supports this plan. Again, I would urge your adoption of this plan, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Andy. I want to thank everyone who's coming out today to address the board on this topic, and as part of this hearing, this public exchange with your elected representatives is a crucial part of the board's decision-making process. We've received dozens of letters from people additionally, some of whom were here today again to speak, but others who have not. And that will help the board going forward to formulate a path forward. So at this point,
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the written record open to November 28th for this specific invasive species management plan public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Again, thank you all for participating today. You're welcome to stay for the next 5 hearings if you like. But if not, please go ahead and clear the room quickly. We'll take just a brief pause.
So first, what's the recommendation? Sure.
Mango. Yeah. Call it a tax. Yeah, we should do this. Yeah.
Sure. No, because I'll bring it up then too. I understand, but, yeah, that was good pick up. You just waited 2 hours. I say, listen.
Hey, Rusty, how are you?
I was just stay and put it on the record. Stay and put it on the record for sure. Yeah.
Sure. All right.
Some interesting, some great comments.
Yeah, sounds good. And do it for myself if I can. No promises. I want to say. That's Chris. I know. Yeah, right. But if they. Yep. But if recognition as developing.
Markers.
That's what I want to get after. And I want to do surgically select.
I'm voting for you next. I'm voting for you next. So any of these things.
Yeah, what do you want to be on?
Yeah, right, exactly. So I want to.
Oh, I was on for 9 years. It's great.
Make sure that you and I are thinking the same way, and that, if they improve.
Yeah.
Because I want to, I'm always trying to improve things, not.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Bye, Kim. Bye.
No, not to me. No, I'm out there all the time. I'm out there all the VI Springs. It's 1 minute down the road from Amagansett. I see. I don't feel that way going east, but now Bridgehampton is really far. But I love going. I go to Montauk almost nightly to just let the sun go down.
Are we silenced? I'll prove it to you.
Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Next.
Thank you.
Wait, we haven't had a 2-hour hearing in a while.
Turkey hunt.
All right.
It's a good day, huh, Derek?
Let's, yeah, not the only good day.
You're not running out for any fires this time, right? You got all the way there right before that resolution, and then the fire hit.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Carol, if you'd read the second public hearing notice of this afternoon, please.
Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons regarding amendment to Chapter 95, bicycles, skates, and scurries to the town code of the town of East Hampton and abstract, which follows: a local law amending Chapter 95, bicycle, skates, and scurry, to include definitions for bicycles with electric assist and electric scooters, restrict the operation of bicycle or skateboard on the east side of North Main Street, East Hampton, between Collins Avenue and Floyd Street, and 3, prohibit the use of bicycles with electronic assist and electronic scooters on any sidewalk within the jurisdictional confines of the town of East Hampton, exclusive of areas wholly within any incorporated village.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this? Yes, Chris. And then Marcy after.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience, Chris.
Feels like deja vu. Again, thank you, board. And again, I think your costume was outstanding.
Thank you. Yours as well.
What's that?
Yours was as well.
My name is Chris Fund. I'm a lifelong resident of Montauk. My purpose here today is to represent the Chamber of Commerce in regard to this this motion here. And I also have had a bike shop in my life since I was 8 years old. Director of many of the races out here, and I'm pretty well versed on a lot of these issues involved here. We do agree with the proposed law, with one caveat in there that we'd like to be sure that there's a distinction that assisted pedal assistance above 25 miles an hour is classified as a motor vehicle. The other,
I'm sorry, could you just restate that?
That because the classification for any electrical assistance above 25 miles an hour to be classified as a motor vehicle. Okay. Otherwise, we support this whole effort. We do also believe that there needs to be a second component of this, because this is certainly a very important part of it, but also equally as important is the issue of people going the wrong direction in the road and stuff like that. So we believe there should be an educational aspect of this movement to make the road safer. We'd also like to recommend that there's an enforcement corridor of Edgemere Road. That would be a great place to set the example for the town, and at least as far as Montauk is concerned, if that is enforced in that area, that will certainly end up being adopted throughout the rest of the town. I don't think it's something that needs to be a town-wide issue, just certainly in the specific areas that would be most meaningful, and that from the train station to the town would be it. Thank you for your time. Hopefully I'll see you next year. Costume.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. I know you've waited 2 hours to address the board. Marcy.
Hello, my name is Marcy Wilkov-Waterman. I'm a Montauk property owner for over 4 decades and a full-time resident since 2014. I wholeheartedly support the proposed changes and agree with Chris that enforcement is critical to any of the code changes. I do want to point out that I think there's an inadvertent loophole in the definition of skateboard, since the restriction is on operating a skateboard on the sidewalk. The definition does not include e-skateboards. And I wasn't sure that they existed, although I have seen them around. But just to be sure, I Googled the term e-skateboard, and there is such a thing, and I could buy one today. And under this provision, I could still ride it on the sidewalk in Montauk. So
I don't recommend you doing that, by the way.
I think I'm already past my bike riding days. Thank you very much. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Anyone else who wishes to address the board on this topic? Yes, sir. Again, thank you for your patience.
Hey, no problem. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Struble, a local resident here, born and raised native. I'm also a local business owner, and I just opened up an e-bike shop in Amagansett, and I'm a huge supporter of the proposal here. I think you shouldn't have any electric bikes on any type of sidewalks, and I think it's definitely, in agreement with Chris too. Over 25 miles an hour is a completely different animal and should be kind of registered as a motor vehicle, not a bicycle. So I think it's great that the town is addressing e-bikes, and hopefully we can see, in the future, more, bike-friendly roads and pathways, and, some more, activity in this regard. So thanks a lot.
Great, thank you for taking the time, and again, your patience waiting to be heard. Anyone else wish to address the board on this public hearing? Do we have any callers on the line, Hudson, for this public hearing?
No callers on the line.
Well, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Carol, if you read the third public hearing notice, please.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard concerning the following grant of a large lot scenic easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is Montauk Sunset Cottages LLC. It's a large lot scenic easement dated October 18th, and the location is 31 and 41 East Lake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 322, 13.1 and 13.2. The reviewing agency is the Planning Board.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board on this public hearing? Do we have any callers on the line, Hudson?
No callers on the line.
Entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Carol, would you read the next public hearing notice, please?
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, on Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard concerning the filing grant of a scenic and conservation easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is Maureen Goldberg. It's a scenic conservation easement dated October 20th at 28 Holly Hill Road, Narragansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300, 127, 250. Reviewing agency is the ZBA.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone wish to address the board on this topic? Do we have any callers on the line, Hudson?
No callers on the line.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. Carol, if you'd read the next public hearing notice, please.
Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, or as soon otherwise set forth herein on Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard for the purpose of considering a proposed contract with the Village of East Hampton for fire protection and emergency ambulance service to be furnished by the village on behalf of the Fire Protection District known as the Northwest Fire Protection District for the calendar years 2024 and 25 upon the following general terms. The village shall provide for answer and attendance to all calls in said fire district and shall furnish firefighting vehicles and equipment and firefighting personnel. The village shall furnish emergency ambulance service, including vehicles and equipment and ambulance personnel to the district. For such services during the 12-month period 2024, the Town of East Hampton shall pay the village the sum of $231,868 for the 2024 calendar year for fire protection, ambulance services and repairs and maintenance. For each such services during the 12-month period of 2025, the town shall pay the village the sum of $1,281,143 for the 25 calendar year for fire protection, ambulance service, and repairs and maintenance.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this public hearing? Do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line.
Can I have a motion to close, please?
Motion to close. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Carol, if you'd read the last public hearing notice for today, please.
Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, or otherwise set forth herein on Thursday, November 16th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard for the purpose of considering a proposed contract with the Village of East Hampton for fire protection and emergency ambulance service to be furnished by the village on behalf of the Fire Protection District known as the Northwest Fire Protection District for the calendar years 24 and 25.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this topic? Do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. That brings us up to public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Mr. Buddha.
Good afternoon, David Buddha.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I should say from the Springs. I rise to address proposed resolution 2023-1473 on Councilperson Rogers' agenda.
Yes, David, that'll be tabled, that resolution.
Good. I'll just say what I was going to say anyway, but I appreciate that. It would authorize the CPF water quality improvement grant of $100,000 and $500 to an entity named as 171 Main Street LLC. This was described when it was presented to the board at work session as being a reapplication with new ownership, and that's why it had to be redone. I urge you to table this resolution, which apparently you heard me thinking about this today, and deliberately slow walk any possible financial gift to the owner of the new location of the Rowdy Hall restaurant. 2 reasons. Reason 1, the resolution before you names the recipient as being 171 Main Street LLC, but it is not the current owner of the subject property.
I think it actually, excuse me, David, it actually is 177 Main.
It is.
Not 171.
I meant to say 177.
You said 171 several times.
Thank you for the correction.
You can watch the tape. Please continue.
Okay. The resolution names as the recipient 177 Main Street LLC, but it is not the current owner of the subject property. Everyone involved in presenting this proposal to the town board surely knows this fact. By deed dated January 17th, 2023, that was recorded on February 28th, 2023. The subject property was sold by 177 Main Street LLC to a Texas limited liability company named ROP Amagansett LLC, which is controlled by River Oak Properties, a real estate development and construction company located in El Paso, Texas. The purchase price was $4.45 million. The reason 2 for my request that has already apparently been heard and agreed to is that it should be obvious to everyone in town by now that there is a serious problem at this property caused by a tenant that has decided to blatantly defy and disregard the town's regulatory authority and the decision of the ARB, the Architectural Review Board. The town should not donate any CPF tax funds to a property owner whose tenant is a defiant transgressor. I urge you to hold this erroneously worded resolution until such time as the rule of law is restored to the Amagansett Historic District at 177 Main Street. There are unfortunately many property owners that violate the town code. Most do so by acting first without permission. Others do it by gradually changing the landscape over time and are not noticed until after the fact. But the situation here is far more egregious. To have the audacity to ask for permission, to understand the need for permission, to ask for it, to be denied that permission, and then simply to disregard the authority of the town is something that the town certainly should not countenance. So, although it is a minor thing, I think that you should slow walk this proposed gift to a commercial entity that purchased a property with a failing commercial septic system and hold this matter in abeyance for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And with regard to the water quality grant, the board had already determined that we would table this resolution, not move forward in light of the circumstances that have occurred.
Good. It was the first I heard that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's the first opportunity we've had to make that public. Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board? Jerry, you sure you don't want to say something? Okay. Do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay, we can move forward then with resolutions to be offered, and Kathy, you have the first.
I do. So let's start with Resolution 2023-1449. It's approval of the warrant. Claims total $2,893,553.85, and the utility warrant totals $33,822.70.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1450 is to appoint part-time office assistant Catherine Lefevre at the hourly rate of $21.25 in the office of the tax receiver, effective December 11th.
Second and welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
2023-1451 is to approve and deem a piano in the Human Services Center as surplus. The Lessing Orchestral Player Piano located at the Senior Citizen Center can no longer be used due to the current condition and age. Thereby, the town hereby declares the item as surplus and approves of its disposal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1452 is to increase the cap for the law office of Vincent Toomey in PBA matters for 2023. The increase shall be capped at $25,000, constituting a total of $75,000 for the 2023 calendar year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1453 is to create a special reserve account for the Montauk Playhouse. This is for the purpose of accepting and designating donations to be used for the Montauk Playhouse Aquatic Center project and the second floor multi-purpose cultural center.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1454 is to approve a change order number 1 for EH 23-001, the YMCA roof replacement. This is actually a credit in the amount of $5,590.40.
Always good to get a credit. Second.
Almost unheard of. Aye.
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 I'm proud to offer Resolution 2023-1455 to appoint part-time recreational specialist Thomas Nelson at an hourly rate of $22.50 effective December 2nd, 2023.
Second and welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1456 is to appoint part-time environmental technician Matthew Mazzella.
I'm not sure that's spelled correctly.
Technician, right?
Yes. You know, the typo on that.
Technician.
Technician. Sorry, Dave.
No worries, no worries. An hourly rate appoint part-time environmental technician, we're gonna spell it correctly, Matthew Mazzella, with aquaculture, an hourly rate of $25.91, retroactive to November 20th, 2023.
Welcome and second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry. I just want to state for the record that that typo is not David Lee's, a mistake.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I barely read it right. Need glasses. 1457 is appoint full-time labor in the highway department, Frenzy DeVioli, an hourly rate of $22.10, $45,969.25 annually, step 15 starting step, effective November 20th, 2023.
Second and welcome again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1458 is the appoint seasonal snow removal drivers and laborers in the highway department for calendar year 23-24. In the resolved, what we need to put there, Carol, is we need to change it and amend it. It says 22 through 23 snow removal seasons. It should be 23 to 24 snow removal seasons. They're going to be paid bi-weekly hourly rate of $35 per hour, effective December 1st, 2023 for the individuals mentioned below.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1459 is a septic proposal for the CDCH septic system design upgrade. The proposal was dated from November 2nd, 2023 from LK McLean Associates, and it's not to exceed $21,800.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1460 is a notice of RFP EH 2023-113, audit services for the Community Preservation Fund and Community Housing Fund proposal. The bid is available on 11/16/2023. The bid is due back on 12/7/2023. Any questions, please contact our financing department at 631-324-4141.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
1461 is a reject bid, EH 23043. This is for the Parsons Place bias wheel repair rebid.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
1462 is an adopt a key policy for the town of East Hampton for individuals, entities that use the occupancy of town-owned buildings and facilities where the town would like to retain a given key to any town-owned building and facility that is subject to a lease or a license agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
1463 is authorize the CPF Water Quality Awards for R2 2023 RFA. This is for projects 8 through 9. This would be for project sponsor Clearwater Beach Homeowners Association in the amount of $63,446. Project sponsor Springs Presbyterian Church for a septic upgrade and the amount of $322,200. Project sponsors Farrow Beach Incorporated for a septic upgrade, an amount of $199,615. Springs General Store for IA upgrade, the amount of $109,639. Harbor Marina is another project sponsor for wastewater improvement for the amount of $105,196. Project sponsor is Cornell Cooperative Extension for non-point source pollutant abatement. This would be in the amount of $112,101. And lastly, the Village of Sag Harbor for wastewater treatment improvements, for home to street piping for sewer shed L. And this would be in the amount of $1,033,611.
Second. Can I call for discussion? I just have a question about the Springs General Store. Since that is, my understanding is that's still in the planning board process and this should be held off until they get through that process?
Per discussion with Melissa Winslow, that they don't have to move forward with the planning board discussion and they would be contracted to a certain amount of flow rate that they can actually go to, which will be designed. So they can't go above that flow rate, and the flow rate is designed for what is currently there, not what is necessary, anything that's proposed. And what is proposed actually has a lesser flow rate than what they're allowed now.
Do you have a suggestion?
I would pull it out and wait until they get through the process. I mean.
I support that, Kathy, if you want to hold off on that.
Okay, so let me amend this. Well,
do we have any other board members
for discussion
agree with that?
No, I would agree.
Okay, so if we pull this, what we'll do is we'll get a memo to that again or recirculate it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to amend the resolution to remove the awarding of the grant funding for project D for the Springs General Store, but approve projects A, B, C, E, F, G, and H.
And we'll do that without prejudice at this time?
Without prejudice.
So we're removing D in its entirety, and then we're gonna make it 7 out of 8 projects,
7 out of 9.
or leave the word 9.
Yes, because there was a total of 9 projects that came in this RFA that were recommended. One of them was pulled out for 177 Main Street. So this is 8 of 9. So we'll make it 7 of 9 will be approved under this resolution. So
you can do that, yeah.
Okay, so
So
that's the motion.
So we have second as amended.
Second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I just apologize. There's been a lot going on and I
No, there
didn't
has,
get
there
a
has, and I
chance to
think-
look at the agenda until this morning.
I'd like to offer 2023 1464 is retain professional engineering services, LK McLean, for the East Hampton sanitation scale engineering and construction support based on an October 31st proposal. Lump sum fee of $20,700 would be for design fee, and the construction support would be $15,800. So it's not to exceed $36,500 for those 2 services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
1465 is authorized payment for Suffolk County Water Authority bills from 2008.
Wow. For
9 and 11.
And 11, excuse me, let's stutter on that one, for a total amount of $1,701.09, please.
Second. How'd that get missed?
It wasn't during this administration.
Good one.
We have a second, all in favor? Aye. Passed and carried.
Okay, we got
Every stone will be.
I'd like to offer resolution 1466. This is to amend the fees for highway excavation permit as per town code section 217.3. The town board made by resolution establish amend fees. Resolved that effective immediately, the new fee for excavation permit is $300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1467 is the approved payment for operations and maintenance agreements for municipal IA system, where the 3-year operation and maintenance agreement were not included in the town bid 22-015. This is for the Westlake IA system upgrade. The town intends to execute a 3-year agreement for $2,400 each for the IA Westlake IA system to be paid at the rate of $800 per year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2023-1468 is notice to bidders. EH 23-050 is the windmill renovations. The bid is available November 30th, and the bid is due back on December 21st. The town of East Hampton wishes to perform public works in excess of $35,000. All public works projects that exceed $35,000 shall be formally bid. And per the request of the Housing and Community Development Department, the purchasing departments be and hereby is authorized to advertise for this. Again, it is let's see, I'm going to also say a site visit is strongly recommended on December the 7th at Windmill, which is 207 Accabonac Road, East Hampton. Attendance is strongly suggested. Specifications are available at the purchasing department office by emailing jcarroza, CARROZA at ehamptonny.gov or at purchasing@ehamptonny.gov beginning on November 30th. And each proposal must be submitted in a sealed envelope, clearly marked Windmill Kitchen Renovations, bid number EH 23-050. And the opening date again is December the 21st. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2023-1469 is budget modification for housing and community. I think you meant development, not renewal. So this is moving from outside professionals in the amount of $1,000 to the budget line repairs in general and to the amount of $1,000.
Second is amended.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2023-1470 is to issue a check to pay NYMER deductible for Zisblat. The town's claim adjuster has investigated the matter. The parties have discussed a settlement of the pending claim and have come to an agreement with regard to the same, including a general release of the town from the claimant. The payment authorized herein represents reimbursement to NYMER for their deductible in the settlement of this matter. And therefore be it resolved that the town of East Hampton hereby agrees to pay NYMER in the amount of $25,000, and the town supervisor is authorized to execute such documentation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2023-1471 is to pay NYMER deductible in Winter Brothers. Winter Brothers filed a claim regarding damage to a vehicle trailer. The town's claims adjuster has investigated the matter, and the parties discussed a settlement of the pending claim and have come to an agreement with regard to such, including a general release of the town from the claimant. The payment authorized herein represents reimbursement to NYMER for their deductible in the settlement of this matter, and it is hereby agreed to pay NYMER in the amount of $7,720 for the reimbursement.
22.
Thank you. And 46 cents.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Resolution 2023 is 1472. It's a budget modification for insurance claim payments, moving from one budget line from full-time salaries of $25,000 to budget line insurance in the same amount, $25,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
My first resolution, 2023-1473, I'd like to actually withdraw that resolution.
Withdraw rather than table.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Then I have resolution 2023-1474, and this is a budget modification for Justice Court capital projects for the replacements of doors and security cameras, which were approved in the 2022 capital plan, and additional funds are needed to complete the project. The project was funded $71,500, but $9,606 is needed at this time. Be it resolved that the town board directs the budget office to increase revenue and appropriated unreserved fund balance for $9,606, replace doors and security cameras, $9,606, and increase expenditure transferred to other funds for replace doors and security cameras in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
And I have resolution 1475, which is a payout upon resignation for Anita Guzzi. And this is in accordance with the CSEA Town of East Hampton Collective Bargaining Agreement. Whereas Renita has resigned her full-time position as Justice Court Clerk in the Justice Court. Her last day of work was October 13th, 2023. And audited time records indicate she has a prorated night shift healthcare buyback incentive pay of $833.33. Resolved that the finance office issue a check through payroll from the appropriate budget account for $833.33, less $15.85 for the final contribution of dental and vision coverage, calculated in an hourly rate of $24.39 for a gross total of $817.48 paid to Renita Guzzi as a final payout.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. 1476 is for Police Officer Plitt and Koshenez to attend the dive training at Peconic Scuba, Hampton Drive, Riverhead, on a date to be determined in December and another date to be determined in January of 2024, not to exceed $3,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1477 is to adopt the 2024 town budget.
Second, it's my last one.
Mine as well. Do we have an all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Thank you. 1476, budget modification, various town departments.
78.
I'm sorry, 78. Good catch. And the total is $99,367.90 for the following departments: Animal Control, Attorney's Office, Buildings and Grounds, Finance, and Sanitation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1479 is a budget modification, police retirement. That is moving from public information, longevity, New York State retirement and full-time salaries. And going to police and fire retirement in the amount of $8,559, and police and fire retirement in the amount of $335,206.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1480 is to extend the agreement RFP EH 2019-105, Airport Aviation Engineering and Consulting Services to Savick and Murray.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. And that'll run through December 12th, 2024. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. And And everybody, we did an all in favor, right? And 1481 is no bidders, EH 23049, printing of miscellaneous forms, November 2023. The bid is available November 16th, 2023, and due back on December 7th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes carried. 1482 is to accept the bid EH 23041, Panago Tower Extension, Atlanta Trading and Engineering Consulting LLC. This is awarded to them at a total cost of $156,611.99. This is for the Panago Tower Extension, part of the emergency communications.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. 1483 is a refund of CPF tax to first-time home buyer, Guzman and Nala, and that is in the amount of $8,400.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. 1484 is to amend the employment policy for department heads and non-representative employees, and that is resolve the employment policies for town of East Hampton department heads, non-represented employees hereby amended to the same holiday schedule as the CSEA collective bargaining agreement, which becomes effective January 1st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass carried. 1485 is increase the cap for Dan Rezzo, Whiteman, Osterman, Hannah LLP as outside environmental counsel for the airport for 2023. Resolve that the increase in funding is required and such increase shall be capped at $150,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1486 is an increase in cap at HMMH as a subcontractor for Dan Rezzo, Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah LLP. And that is to increase the funding. Increased funding is required for HMMH, and such increase shall be capped at $83,989.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1487. Amend Resolution 2023-1155, that Resolution 2023-1155 is hereby amended to reinstate the approved 2023 capital fund request for the purchase of a drone by the town police department in the amount of $21,000 to be funded by fund balance for the account code as follows.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1488 is to amend Resolution 2023-1435 and resolve the town board hereby approves the increased grant submission amount with no cost to the town, the operating budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
I have Resolution 2023-1489 is to authorize New York State Assessors Association online webinar for Alessandra Latanzio, and this is in the amount of $100.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1490 is approval of various special event permits, the Montauk Chamber of Commerce, the Magic of Montauk Holiday Fair on the Montauk Green on Saturday, December 9th. That should say 2023. Sorry, Carol. 2 to 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that there's a date change for the Amagansett School Turkey Trot. It's now Tuesday, November 21st, 9:15 to 10:15.
Second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1491 is to retain John C. Armentano Esquire and Philip Butler Esquire in the law firm of Farrell Fritz as outside counsel for professional secret legal services. And this is in accordance with the proposal that they had provided us.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Like to offer Resolution 2023-1492, is accept the bid EH 23-012. This is for the second house restoration, Phase 3, for the rebid to Low Duca Associates. The bid Low Duca is hereby accepted the amount of $1,310,155,000 for the second house restoration project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
Oh, I'm sorry. Resolution 1493 is to amend CSE Schedule A to add the Community Development Program Analyst. And Schedule A is amended to reflect the addition of a Community Development program analyst on grade 34, starting step $37.51 per hour, and a schedule of 40-hour work week effective November the 16th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
I'd like to make a motion to go into exec session to discuss CPF personnel and potential litigation.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. Stay safe and be well, everyone. Thank you, LTV.
Yep, thanks, Hudson.
Thanks.